This is Boomer Life on CL 650.
Do your ears hang low? Do they wobble to and fro? Can you tie them in or not?
Where did you find that one, Dwayne? You're listening to Boomer Life on CL 650. I'm George Gordon. Today we're talking about the dramatic effects of hearing loss, and more importantly, the solutions you can find with NexGenHearing. I'm joined again by NexGen's Dr. Ted Venema. Let's talk a bit more about the science and the evolution of the hearing aid and and how you make them better. Talk to me about compression.
Compression. Compressione. Compression is a big word in today's hearing aids. Compression means, remember what we talked about when I said earlier that with sensory neural hearing loss, your floor becomes elevated. You can't hear 10 decibels. You can't hear 20. It takes about 50 for you to just barely hear, and yet 100 becomes too loud. That means your range of hearing has become smaller. And again, to use an analogy, instead of standing on the floor with my feet and having the ceiling above me, now I'm standing on the table, but the ceiling hasn't moved. Okay, my ceiling of loudness tolerance hasn't changed with most hearing loss. Someone with hearing loss has pain hearing 100 decibels just like a normal hearing person does. They just can't hear the soft sounds. So, compression. Compression in hearing aids means they amplify different sounds by different amounts. And by that I mean soft sounds are amplified by a lot. Average sounds are amplified by less. Loud sounds are amplified by little or nothing at all. So the hearing aid is always changing the amount by which it's amplifying. And you think about an amplifier that's doing that, not just your stereo amplifier that you turn up and you're letting it sit. A hearing aid has to change its volume constantly. And most hearing aids today don't even have a volume control on them. The hearing aid is automatically changing its amplification so that it's putting the amplified sound in your hearing range, above your floor and below your ceiling of loudness tolerance. So a really soft sound will be amplified by a lot. An average sound that gets louder and louder, the hearing aid automatically backs off. So that an amplifier that can change its amplification instantly like that, constantly, is going to be having quite a bit of sophistication, and that's compression.
We talked a little bit about programming the hearing aid, but you have some more to tell us about the programs involved in the test and the hearing aid.
Programs on hearing aid. Yeah, we talked about hearing aids being programmed because they're digital. But now that you've stored, you can program the hearing aid for person X to match his or her hearing loss. Great. Save the program, and it's saved on a digital chip inside your hearing aid. And then we can make a different program. So we can save the first program as, for example, your listening in quiet program, when there's no background noise. That'll be your base program. That'll be your program for so you don't have to turn up the TV so much or whatever. Just your regular one-on-one program. But now you can make a different program and save that as program 2. And that can be for your listening and noise program. Or we can save a third program as your listening over the telephone program. Or another program for your listening to music program. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, background noise is mostly low pitch. Blah, 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 hubbub, babble, yeah, blah, 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 blah. It's mostly low pitch. And low pitches easily cover high pitches. The rumbling of a truck covers the peeping of a canary. Okay, just no problem. So what you want to have then is a listening and noise program. And in contrast to your first program for listening in quiet, one-on-one, the noise program will deliberately reduce the bass, which is background noise, and it'll deliberately increase the treble, which is the high-frequency consonants, and that'll enable the person to hear better in noise. And how do you change those programs? Usually with a little remote control. I'll be like Dick Tracy, my watch.
Wow, well, you're pointing at yourself instead of the TV.
Yes. Or you have a little button on your hearing aid.
Wow.
So it can happen whichever manner of ways that you feel comfortable with. A lot of people like to have a little, here I see this little gadget here, little handheld remote. And they just switch it from program to program and no problem. Most hearing aids come with remote controls.
That
Tiny little things.
that is amazing.
Yep.
Now, my wife has always told me that I have selective deafness. That
Most men do.
Yes, that when I'm watching the TV, I hear nothing else but the TV, or if she asks me to do something, that I suddenly. But there is such a thing as a directional function in the hearing aid, so that you can. Tell me about that.
Directional microphones, it's called. Directional microphones. Well, the biggest problem that hearing aid wearers complain about is background noise. Background noise is the numero uno complaint. I like the hearing aids, but in background noise, that's why we give a listening and noise program. But that doesn't always solve all the issues. To further decrease background noise, we use what's called a directional microphone. Now, directional microphones are just like your hearing aid picks up sound by a microphone. The microphone is just a dot. It's just a hole on the hearing aid. It's just a tiny little, like a pencil tip. It's just a little dot. A directional mic doesn't look any different, but it favors the sound coming from in front of the listener, assuming that the person I want to hear is sitting in front of me. So if I turn my head away from the listener, now your voice is really going to get softer. I won't hear you as well. I should be facing you. And then now I'm picking up your voice again. Reason why? To help get rid of the background noise. If I make my hearing aid microphones really sensitive to the front and not so sensitive to the sides and rear, then hopefully I'll increase the loudness of the speech that I want to hear compared to the background noise. And then once again, that can be programmed into the hearing aid and on the person's remote control. Listening one-on-one, no need for directional mic. Regular picking up sound. Going into background noise, reduce the bass because background noise is low pitch, increase the treble because consonants of speech are high pitched, plus the hearing aid automatically goes into directional microphone mode. So the listening and quiet program will use the microphone will act regular. It'll pick up sounds equally in all directions, and we call that omnidirectional. And then the hearing aid will be delivering the sound that's programmed into it. Person walks into noise. Oh, I should switch to my noise program. Pushes a button on his remote. Automatically, the bass goes less, the treble is increased, plus the hearing aid goes into directional microphone function. So now I've got two sets of armor, or two ways to tackle the background noise problem.
And this sounds like something that would be not used necessarily just by the elderly. I can think of the professionals who work in busy multiple person environments, or sitting one-on-one, or having to deal one-on-one with
for sure.
Do you see a lot of these people finding a difference with these
it's the
hearing aids?
Because not only do elderly people have hearing loss, many middle-aged and young people have hearing loss. There's youth today who are born with hearing loss, going to school, tackling college and getting an education. And all of these elements are used by anyone in the population, and they call that increasing signal to noise. Signal being the speech you want to hear, noise being the competition. And so you have various weapons at our disposal. And one of them, a real juggernaut of those, is the use of different listening programs. Now here's one for music. You can make a third program for listening to music. Music has a lot of bass in it. Music has da-da-da-da-da-da. I'll keep my daytime job, but it's got bass and treble.
Right.
So the third program for listening to music, you want to open up the sound of that hearing aid to amplify a broader range of pitches on purpose. So it'll give a more full and rich sound. And again, it just depends on what the listener wants. Hearing aids can be kept simple, set and forget. Maybe somebody doesn't want all that jazz, the different programs. Hearing aids sometimes can be programmed to automatically switch programs. So the person doesn't always have to choose the remote. So there's so many different possibilities. For the elderly who don't want to be handling a remote control, you can program the hearing aid to automatically switch programs.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite a world out there. Way bigger and more fascinating than the beige banana that sat behind your ear that whistled.
Well, I find it intriguing, and I don't want to get too off topic, but I think that the science, the observations, the that have made these changes possible, were they audiologists such as yourself that's you know what, this person works well in this, or this person seems lost here, and I wonder what the difference is, like the testing that you must have gone through.
Here's how it all, research and development, R&D is a big word at hearing aid companies. And a big flourishing in hearing aid technology took place in the mid-90s. That's when things all of a sudden exploded. That's when digital hearing aids emerged onto the scene, when compression emerged onto the scene, directional microphones made a real entrance, and same with the one we haven't discussed yet, digital noise reduction. So, and there was like a real renaissance or an explosion of hearing aid technology in the mid-90s, and it largely came with the advent of digital as opposed to analog.
And the need increasing in a noisier world.
Well, that's true too, and that would be a great topic for another radio show.
Future
wouldn't it?
show, absolutely.
Noise-induced hearing loss is the second most common cause of hearing loss in the world, and the sickening thing about it is it's preventable. That's the kicker. We don't stare at the sun because you know you're going to burn your eyes out.
Right.
But somehow people think that the ear is impervious to the ravages of noise. And guess what? Elderly people in Africa have better hearing than elderly people in Canada. You know why? Less noise pollution. Our ears were meant to hear the soft voices over the crackling of a fire. That's what our ear, and the roar of a lion, hopefully in the distance. Okay? Not the clanging of steel upon steel, the Industrial Revolution. That was not meant to be for us and hearing.
All right, well, we look forward to talking about that in a future show.
Yeah.
When we come back, we'll talk a bit about the process of going in for a test, taking away some of the fear that people might have. I'd like to hear some stories that you have seen personally where changes have been made for the better in people's life.
For sure.
All right, so stay with us. You're listening to Boomer Life on CIL 650. You can get more information about NexGen at NexGenHearing.com. Dr. Ted Venema and the whole group have gone through such a training process to make this so easy. We're going to talk about that coming up, taking away the fear, the stigma, all the rest of it about going in and making your life better by hearing better. This is Boomer Life. I'm George Gordon.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CIL 650.